Welcome everyone to my top 10 classic horror films predating 1968. I really enjoy the horror genre and it does have some very pleasant surprises. These aren't necessarily the greatest horror films ever made, but they are definitely my favourites. So let's start the countdown. Coming in at number 10 is House on Haunted Hill. I don't know what it is about this one, but when I rewatched it, I really loved it and appreciated it even more. The plot focuses on a group of people who all compete against one another in staying at a haunted house for one night in order to win a cash fortune. It quickly becomes a classic whodunit while also being a campy horror film, and that's what I enjoyed about it so much. Scenes such as the one you just seen make it so wonderfully overly dramatic, and with Vincent Price being one of the main characters, you can be sure he has some of the best dialogue. This is definitely an underseen classic. Number 9 is House of Wax, another Vincent Price movie that charts its way onto my favourites, and it is another classic. Ignore the shitty remake and we have this. At the time it was made for 3D, and you can definitely see what scenes they wanted to have pop out at audiences using this gimmick. The film has wonderful colour, and Vincent Price is the person who really makes this film a tense and suspenseful film. It isn't that strong when it comes to supporting characters, but overall it is a great look at artistic obsession and being driven to insanity. Check this one out if you haven't already, it's a classic. Number 8 is The Cabinet of Dr Caligari. I have talked about this one before in other videos, and all I can say now, having rewatched it, is that it holds up extremely well. All these years later, the first Cree horror film will still surprise audiences at its expressionistic visuals, full of pointed sets and dark cinematography. Massive an influence for future filmmakers like Tim Burton, it marks itself as one of the most important silent films ever made. The best thing about the film is that it makes you think about everything you have just seen, with twists and turns in the plot, predating the revelations that we see in the films of M. Night Shyamalan and David Fincher. There are several versions of the film on YouTube, so find a good one with good picture quality and music. However, I would personally recommend the Monsters of Cinema Blu-ray release.
Now what you doing?
Photographing you, photographing me.
After Rear Window, there was Peeping Tom. The plot concerns a young man who murders women using the camera to record their horrified expressions. Taking the idea of voyeurism, Michael Powell takes it to the next level in what is definitely a film ahead of its time. Haunting, disturbing, but not at all gory or violent, Powell shows the camera as a perverse instrument of evil. The film has its atmosphere thanks to the spine-tingling and creepy performance from Karl-Heinz Baum, excuse the pronunciation, playing the young psychopathic movie killer with a troubled history related to the camera. The film has since been analysed and deconstructed, and I look forward to seeing it again to grip onto these themes of voyeurism, repressed memories, and the camera as a technology that may record more than it should.
Here we go gathering nuts in May, nuts in May, nuts in May. Here we go.
At number 6 is The Invisible Man. While this one doesn't totally fit the category of being horror, it is considered by many as one. It is a mix of sci-fi and horror and begins with Claude Rains, a mysterious man who has come to a tavern to stay in order to continue his experiments. It isn't long before he is interrupted, causing him to go wild with his experiment. This is one of the films that made me start to appreciate classics more, and what I loved about it is that this is 1933 and we are seeing green screen effects that have become commonplace today. The process for this film, however, was a little different, involving a black screen backdrop and combining it with the negative footage recorded. It doesn't look dated or bad either. For its time, it's very impressive and works well to this day as a fantastic story of scientific obsession and madness.
Power, power to rule, to make the world grovel at my feet.
Number 5 is Nosferatu, a symphony of horror. This is another one I have talked about, and at the risk of repeating myself, I will say again that this is still one of the most chilling horror films to date. Loosely based upon Bram Stoker's novel, later causing a lawsuit for copyright, Nosferatu shows us Dracula as a rat-like creature, a phantom of the night. Like Caligari, this is another German expressionist film, which I have talked about so many times. Nosferatu's shadow has become one of the most famous in all of cinema. This is another silent essential. At number 4 is the Japanese film Oni Baba. This film is meditative in its pacing, but easily becomes a haunting and suspenseful story. Two women murder samurai in order to sell their belongings to survive. One later has an affair with a neighbour, and the other encounters a mysterious samurai wearing a peculiar mask. Insanity, envy, sex and death are at the core of this nightmarish film. I really love how it has been filmed. We open to the tall grass breezing side to side, and it is in this grass that the women commit the murders. The grass works to their effect in order to hide and sneak around, as even as the viewers don't know what's going to happen. If you're looking for an alternative kind of film, this is one to watch. Number 3 is The Bride of Frankenstein. Often this film is argued as being better than its predecessor in 1931, and for me I find it difficult which to rank above each other. Bride of Frankenstein contains several elements that made the original great, but has more comedy and emotion. The film opens where the last film left off, when the monster has been trapped in a burning windmill. However, the monster isn't dead yet. He goes roaming around the forest. Meanwhile, Dr. Frankenstein gets a visit from Dr. Pistorius, proposing the idea to create a mate for the monster. The dark sense of humour the film has is wonderful, and the Pistorius character is certainly an eccentric.
I thought I was alone. Good evening. Smoke. Friend. Yes, I hope so.
He isn't at all bothered by death or monsters. Bride of Frankenstein, hands down, is an essential classic that I will always love.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Number 2 is Frankenstein. The story of one scientist's mad dream to create life from the dead is still one of the most engaging. Boris Karloff's portrayal of the monster is still astonishing, and ironically breathes life into his role. Everything in this film has made it iconic to the point that everyone knows what the Frankenstein monster looks like, making it one of cinema's most identifiable characters. Lending hand to German expressionism, there I go again mentioning it, the film has a dark and damp atmosphere, with eerie interiors and spooky locations. Frankenstein Castle is tall and empty, making it the perfect place for his experiments alongside his hunchbacked assistant. It is fun to think that this film terrified audiences when released, making you realise how desensitized we have become. Regardless, I still think Frankenstein manages to be chilling in some scenes to this day, thanks to the careful direction, lighting and performances. And coming in at number 1 is Psycho. The famous shower scene, Hitchcock's direction, the quirky and innocent performance from Anthony Perkins, the camera work, the Bernard Herrmann score, the Bates Motel. My list could go on listing what makes Psycho a masterpiece of horror. If you're watching this and you haven't seen the film yet, you're in for an absolute treat, and by that I mean hurry up and watch it. To avoid spoiling anything, I will not use any scenes from the end of the film. The plot concerns Marion Crane, a secretary who takes off almost spontaneously with stolen money from her employer's client, finding herself on the run when she comes to a remote motel. Almost everyone knows about the shower scene and the Norman Bates character, and it is simple to see how iconic and important this film is. Hitchcock informed when the film was played in cinemas that no one was to enter the film late in order to view the film properly and in its entirety. This completely shocked audiences at the time and began the first change in the horror genre, soon leading to the slasher genre. From the acting to the cinematography, I could go on and on about this film, and I will end on saying that I still find it scary and unbelievably suspenseful. This is an essential film to the highest degree.
I didn't mean to pry.
I'm looking for a private island.
What are you running away from?
Why do you ask that?
Thanks for joining me everyone in this list video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope some of your favourites popped up. If you liked the video, be sure to comment, subscribe and share your thoughts on the video and the films. And I ask you also, what are your favourites? Again, just comment below. Stay tuned for the next list video looking at my top 10 modern horror films after 1968. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time.